officially at 18:30, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll go ahead and motion to start the meeting for today for the Shore Acres general meeting, our first Zoom live meeting. So how exciting. We have a lot of a packed agenda here. And so I'll go ahead and call to order if somebody would second that.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. Meeting is brought to order. So we'll start off with a treasurer report coming from our Shore Acres treasurer. So I'll pass it to you, Pat, please.
Okay. When I took over, we started the account with $9,000 out of the old checking account. We moved it, and since then we have taken in I'm just looking here, how many? 122 new memberships. When I finally got to the postal box, there were many in there. So, like over 100. So that was a fun time.
Good.
So we have added 2380 in memberships. We've added, that's in regular checks. And then we've added square memberships for $57.36. We got some people who made donations that totaled $60. And then we finally closed the old account once we knew everything was cleared and transferred that 33.55.27 over. So we ended up depositing 58.52.64. Since then, we had to buy some checks so we could pay some people. We did pay Jack for sending out the membership letter that he had written the check for $857.63. I did order a check stamp when I had 100 and some checks. And then Florida annual statement, we've made that and paid our fee to the state of Florida. So we spent $960. So we now have $13,891.81 in the treasury, and we have like 155 paid members.
Okay, great. That's good.
Yeah, we've gotten a few extra payments since then. There's one in the mailbox every 3 or 4 days. So
that's fantastic. And thank you, Pat. And
yeah,
Pat's also coming up with our list of members, so we can see that.
I'll send it to all of you after the meeting.
Okay.
Fantastic. And as a reminder, this session is being recorded and we're monitoring the chat window for any questions, but we will open up the voice chat a little bit later in the session. Unfortunately, Officer Don wasn't able to connect to this live meeting, but he did provide us with a short summary and synopsis, sort of the status for the meeting, or status for the crime and safety of the neighborhood. So there was a commercial burglary to LCC where apparently some kids had gotten into an unlocked building and took some candy. Yes. If this is the worst of our problems, I'd say we're sitting pretty good. But yeah. There were also 2 vehicle burglaries with unlocked vehicles and no suspects at this time. But, you know, considering the climate of today, just remember to keep your good neighbors good and lock your car doors, be vigilant. I'd say overall we had a pretty good month. And so welcome to any new members who are joining us. This is our first Zoom meeting. I'm Elena Robichevsky, Secretary for the Civic Association. And so I will pass it off back now to our president, Gary, for some additional updates.
Okay, looks like Ben, you're here. We'll for sure unmute you. Here, let me, you know what? I might not be a host anymore. Elena, can you see if you can unmute our representative? Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, Ben, we'll get you.
No, I think it.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. Nice to see you.
Oh, nice to see you. Yeah, Ben Diamond, we're very, very happy to have you here and have him come speak with us today. Ben went to Yale University, which I was quite impressed with that you did that. And he went to the University of Florida, Levin College of Law, where he served as editor-in-chief of the Florida Law Review. He is our representative for Florida House District 68. And I know he knows a lot of people in the neighborhood. Ben, we have a few mutual friends. Maybe we'll talk about sometime. But without further ado, please welcome Ben Diamond, our representative.
Well, thanks, Gary. Great to be with you all tonight on this Zoom meeting. And I'm so happy that the Shore Acres Civic Association is figuring out a way to keep the work going and the good work that you're doing in your neighborhood. And it's great to see my friend Kevin on the call. You know, Kevin and I, our sons are on Northeast Little League together. And obviously that has been thrown a big curveball here by this COVID. We haven't had a chance to be playing any baseball or really socializing. But I thought I'd just give a brief update. I mean, obviously, my plan has changed for this. I'll just tell you candidly. I mean, when Gary first invited me to come and give a talk to the neighborhood, it was going to be about what happened in Tallahassee in our legislative session. And then, of course, that was before this pandemic started. And now the world is a bit upside down. So I'm happy to take some questions, or if we've got time, talk about what happened in Tallahassee during the session. But I thought I'd just share some comments about where I see where we are from my perspective in talking to state leaders in dealing with this crisis. You know, we've got really two existential threats that we're dealing with simultaneously with the coronavirus. We've got the threat to our health and the threat to our healthcare system. We cannot let the virus spread without responding, which is why the governor was right, and all the governors in initially shutting down and issuing these stay-at-home orders. But the obvious second threat that we're dealing with is the economic threat, in terms of the fact that we just cannot sustain a closed economy for 12 to 18 months. And so what our governor and all governors of all states have been trying to do has been to find that balance of creating some type of integrated strategy where we recognize both threats and we are trying to find a way to control the disease while rebuilding some type of economic activity. Now, over the past week, I think as we've all seen, we have seen, unfortunately, a spike in new cases, both statewide and here in Pinellas County. We recorded as a state our single-day record for new COVID-19 cases on Saturday. That was about 25, just north of 2,500 cases. And we also saw the highest number of cases we have experienced as a county on Saturday, about 165. I don't know what to make of that. The governor has said that that is the result of increased testing. I think that it is likely, unfortunately, also the result, candidly, of looser restrictions. And you know, I went to pick up some takeout at a restaurant on Beach Drive the other night. It was Friday night after work. And I mean, people were out in full force. A lot of people were out with no masks on. And obviously on a Friday night, you know, people have a couple drinks and the next thing you know, it's sort of like we've forgotten that we all have to be careful and we all have to practice social distancing. And so I would just encourage everybody, you know, in your interactions with your friends and your neighbors and your loved ones and your families, I know we're all tired of sort of living like hermits, but I think this is the new normal for a while. And I think we've got to be as careful as we can be in our personal lives and continue to do just what Dr. Fauci tells us, you know, wearing our masks when we're out, washing our hands, practicing social distancing whenever possible. And more than that, and I apologize, my kids are screaming in the background, but more than that, just really being thoughtful about everything we do in terms of whether this is really necessary. We've gone to having our groceries delivered from Shipt. It's a little bit more expensive, but it means we don't have to go to the grocery store twice a week. Obviously, if you've got to go to the doctor for something that is critically important, you got to go to the doctor. But if it's something that is just a checkup thing, maybe you decide I'm not going to do that. And we just have to keep our guard up. If you remember nothing else from my comments tonight, I just wanted to say that. Briefly, I wanted to share with you a little bit of the perspective in terms of the impact that this may be having, or this will have on our state's budget. So the legislative session has concluded. We met in the early part of the year and basically finished up in the beginning of March, right when this was all coming down on us. And we wrote a budget for the state of Florida. It's our one constitutional responsibility. I'm privileged to serve on the House Appropriations Committee. And, we came together as Democrats, as Republicans, across the political spectrum to write a very good budget that we were all proud of, that we voted on. And it was based on a projection of revenue for the state of Florida that was done by our state economists back in the fall, before all this started. It's the largest budget we've ever written. It was a $93 billion budget. And as many of you know, we primarily fund our budget in Florida, our general revenue, through the collection of sales tax. So, we had a budget that had a number of things we were proud of, from fully funding affordable housing to giving our teachers a raise. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of those issues are now very much in jeopardy. Guys, I gotta pause 1 second here and make sure my kiddos are okay. Are you guys okay? Thank you. Just be a minute. Thanks, Frank. So this is the new normal, right? We're all trying to work. I have an awesome 7-year-old son, and then we have twin girls who are 2, and this is the witching hour in my house when everybody sort of melts down. But back to the budget. When you have 3/4 of your budget come from sales tax revenue, and you look at the impact of what we're dealing with, and you can look at any data point, number of seated diners in a restaurant, number of people taking airplane trips. And of course, our economy in Florida is built on tourism. We know that the impact is going to be profound in terms of our budget. So my background is I started out with my work in state government, working in the state CFO's office. I worked there as a young lawyer from 2007 to 2011 when we had the last recession. So right away, I started writing the state CFO and the governor and said, guys, we need new numbers in terms of, we need a new revenue estimate as to what we're dealing with. We need to get our heads around this so that we can figure out what we're going to do in the next couple of years to get us through this, and how we're going to fund sort of the mission critical work of what we fund as a state, in terms of teachers, police, fire, law enforcement, etc. I'm very concerned and candidly frustrated that it's now June 15th. I wrote a letter to the state CFO back in March about this. We still have not had a meeting of our state revenue estimating conference, which I think is not a good sign in terms of being proactive in dealing with this. I joined in a call saying we need to go back to Tallahassee. Not that I personally or anybody personally thinks it's a good idea to put ourselves back into the mix, but it's just clear to me that the budget that we wrote for the new fiscal year, which starts on July 1, is going to have to be rewritten. That special section call has not garnered any support yet, really. I mean, Some of my colleagues have supported it. Most of them haven't. The second thing that has become clear to me is that we are going to need the support of additional federal resources and a federal stimulus to make the budget work in Florida. You know, the Congress did meet immediately and passed the CARES Act, and the first round of that includes support for state and local governments, but I think there's going to be the need for additional support. And so far, there has been some bipartisan efforts on that in the United States Congress. You know, the federal, obviously the Congress has more ability than we do. They can work to literally print the money. We cannot do that in state government, you know? And so, so we have some big issues looming in terms of how we're going to deal with this from a budget perspective. We have some big issues looming in our community and our state in terms of how we're going to help people who've lost their jobs. You know, unfortunately, we've had a tremendous surge in unemployment, both in Florida and nationally. We're talking, you know, numbers we have not seen since the Great Depression, obviously. And we had a little bit of positive news on the May report, but for the most part, the numbers have not been good. And so we've got to fix the issues with regard to our state unemployment system. Basically, that system has not worked at all. All of us that are serving this community in the legislature, from, you know, regardless of party, we have gotten blown up. Our phones have been blown up by constituents who say, hey, I've been trying for weeks now to get help with unemployment benefits. I can't get through on the website. And unfortunately, those issues have not been fixed. So I wish that we had a better, more positive update to share, but I think that we're in a very challenging situation as a state, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I don't think it would be appropriate to sugarcoat it. And not only that, I think many of us are calling on the governor and everybody in state agencies to be totally transparent about what we're dealing with. You know, that's what Floridians want and expect. You know, they want to know that the information that we're getting is clear and it's true, whether it's information about nursing home cases and cases in our assisted living facility or other issues. You know, give us the facts. We can, you know, if we can work off of the facts, we're at least starting in the right spot. So my hope is over the next month, we're going to have a better sense on this budget picture. We're going to have a better sense of the impact that this crisis has had on our state revenue collections. And we can start working toward making some decisions about how we can move forward, how we can build up our public health infrastructure in a way so that we have more testing, more contact tracing, more controls around people who have been affected so that we can reduce transmissions, so that that can maintain a certain level of openness to try to keep our economy moving through this while people who are a whole lot smarter than me work on figuring out the cure and the antidote. But that's a brief update, Gary. Again, I want to commend you, commend your neighborhood association. I mean, I have seen, I live in the Old Northeast, but I have seen such great moments of neighborly thoughtfulness through this whole struggle, where people know that somebody is living alone and they're checking on them. People are really going out of their way, even in the midst of all these challenges, to be neighborly and check on people and do good deeds. And I think that goes a long way in here, particularly when we're all so socially isolated. So Gary, thanks, and I'm happy to, however you want to do it, just leave it at that and listen to the rest of your meeting or whatever. But it's great to see you and great to see so many friends on this call.
Thank you so much for joining us. We did have a couple of questions in the chat if you want to take a moment to read through.
Okay, and I apologize. You may have to read them to me because I couldn't get the computer to work, so I'm doing this on my iPhone, which is a little
okay,
hard.
Elena, if you could.
I can't see the chat, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a question. I'll read my own question, but I'll just go through the order. So I definitely share many sentiments, and I empathize with the position that you're put in to represent, our community and do what's right for all of us. We look to you guys for that, and I don't envy your position. It's a tough spot to be in, but we have trust and faith that you guys will do the right thing. And I was just saying today, I went to go drop my daughter off at camp, and it was closed because a parent did the right thing and called and said that they had tested positive, so they had to close the camp down. That was going to be our first day, nonetheless. So I'm in it with you. So one question that has been kind of top of mind for me, and thinking about the neighborhoods that we are able to join online meetings, and we have the luxury and the affordability to be able to do so. And I think Florida being so vastly economically diverse, from South Florida all the way on up to the Panhandle, how are we able to address the digital divide where it maybe wasn't the number one priority, but seeing as how so much of our daily lives are now being conducted online, what are we doing to make sure that the economic dispersion doesn't grow deeper?
Well, it's a great question, and the folks that are sort of furthest along in thinking through the answers to that question are really the folks at the Pinellas County School District, I think, and Michael Greco. They've been trying to deal with the academic divide in our schools in terms of how to make certain schools in our county perform better and how help students achieve better results in the classroom. And then this gets thrown at them, and as you can imagine, there's some households like ours with young kids where we've got computers, and we've got internet, high-speed internet, and we've got we just turn it on and go. It's still a challenge even with all that technology, but then you have a whole bunch of other households in Pinellas County that don't have that. I give Dr. Greco a lot of credit. He right away went to work, and they tried to get computers out to all the kids and families that didn't have those, and tried to get that technology going. And their success rate was far higher than I would have ever thought. When I talk to colleagues of mine that represent other communities around the state, I will tell you that other communities around our state are having far greater challenges with these issues than I think we've had here in Pinellas County. A lot of my colleagues that represent more rural parts of Florida, where there's not the broadband access, and there's just sort of not the connectivity that we candidly have in a more urban part of the state, they've had greater challenges. This may be one of the silver linings of this whole experience, is that it will bring to light a lot of these underlying issues that a lot of people have been talking about, whether it's this one or disparities in terms of just access to healthcare and access to health insurance, all sorts of, obviously racial disparities, which we're talking about right now in other contexts, but we're seeing play out in this pandemic in terms of the fact that it seems to be more negatively impacting the African American community. More Black people are getting sick in a more serious way as a result of this pandemic. But we're seeing a lot of these underlying issues come to light as a result of this unfortunate experience. That's certainly one of them. But I got to give Dr. Greco a lot of credit for the work that he tried to do, and all those teachers to try to get all the kids in this county a way to get plugged in, right when this started. And it didn't work. It didn't work 100% of the households, but it worked in a remarkably high number.
Yeah. And it's kind of a good segue into the next question that we had here from Michael Hoffman, which was, firstly, thank you for all that you do and for your regular email updates. We're concerned that the Pinellas County School District is planning to move forward with the return to school at the end of the summer. And so do you have any insight or recommendations relating to that, given that really there's no end in sight to the pandemic, and this seems like an irresponsible move for the safety of our children and ourselves.
Yeah, well, Michael, thanks for that comment and for that question. And look, obviously, this is an extraordinarily fluid situation. And the thinking of our leaders on our school board, our superintendent 10 days ago, may be very different now, or maybe moving in a different direction in light of these new numbers. I know that our governor and our commissioner of education in Tallahassee very much want us to be back in school in August. I know as a parent, okay, I very much want us to be back in school in August. But we can't just wave a magic wand and pretend that we're not dealing with a very significant problem. And our absolute primary responsibility has to be the safety of our young people, our children, our teachers, our support staff. I mean, you know, it's like the discussion about having baseball. Well, why can't they just play baseball and just put it on TV? Well, because there are a whole lot of people that support a baseball team. And there's a whole lot of people that support the operation of the Pinellas County School District. And, you know, we have to be confident that not only will our kids be safe, but that everybody who's working there can be safe, and that we have a real plan to do that. And I think that is going to be an issue that is going to have to be continually reevaluated as we see new data coming in over the course of the next several weeks. Any other comments in that chat?
Yeah.
I apologize that
I know Kevin Batdorf had something, question about the internet sales tax.
Right. Well, Kevin is raising a very good question. You know, I mean, this has been debated before. And part of the challenge we're going to have now is a revenue challenge. I mean, where is the money going to come from to pay for what we need to pay for in state government if we're not collecting a whole bunch of sales tax? You know, we've had 10 fat years where we had very, very strong economic numbers in this state. We had everybody and their mother coming for a visit. We had people spending lots of money in our restaurants and our hotels. Fortunately, we were relatively conservative in trying to build some reserves. So it's not like we're facing this without some money in reserve. But I think there's going to be a more robust debate on that issue, because people are going to start to say, hey, well, you know, I mean, it's like my family, you know, we buy an unbelievable number of diapers online on Amazon.com every week because we have twin 2-year-old girls. And, you know, at some point there's going to be a real discussion in Tallahassee about that issue. And I think that may get more attention now because of the challenges we're going to have in balancing this budget. Until we can get the revenue projection done, I don't really know how much appetite there's going to be for that. Obviously, the bigger the hole, the more the need to find give great consideration to those types of issues. And again, I'll just put it out there, I am disappointed. And I don't think it's been, you know, there's a lot that I've agreed with in this administration, a lot I haven't agreed with. And in the time of crisis, you're not trying to, you know, you're just trying to get through it. It's not about politics, but like, we need the information. You know, it's now June 15th and we don't know where we are in terms of state revenue. That's not good. And, you know, any business that I've talked to in this thing has said that their CFO could give them a range. They think the impact's going to be from here to here. Obviously, that range is going to be readjusted. The state of Florida is no different. You know, we need to have our heads around the fiscal impact of this so we can start working toward planning on what we're going to be doing.
Okay, one last question here. Do you believe that hospitals may be getting more support than nursing homes? Seems NH are vilified. Nursing homes are vilified and the hospitals are called heroes. In Pinellas, penalties are much higher in nursing home cases than the rest of the state. Minority staff persons working in the front lines need help to maintain COVID. Thoughts about the nursing homes, and obviously we have a situation with the nursing homes. My mom's in one, and if somebody gets it, you know, it can be very deadly for that particular nursing home.
Well, you're absolutely right, Gary. And in Pinellas, you know, the nursing homes are sort of the first and last place of concern in everybody's mind. You know, we've had a series of very troubling situations, beginning with Lake Seminole Square out on Seminole Boulevard. There was a bad situation with a facility in Pinellas Park. I had a call with the state surgeon general last week and with the secretary for the Agency for Healthcare Administration. They're the regulator for the nursing homes. I really think they have a plan to try to move quickly and deal with, you know, they have a sort of immediate action plan if they find an infection in a nursing home, if they find a nursing home that isn't following all the proper protocols in terms of having staff use, you know, the right PPE and the right infection protocols. And they're working in close coordination with Dr. Cho and our Pinellas County Health Department to try to do that. So they're also, you know, they've also taken, from what I can tell, very appropriate initial steps to say we're not going to discharge, you know, patients from the hospital who had been infected with COVID and send them back to a nursing home. And I know that seems obvious to us, but like, you know, I mean, other states had made that mistake. And so, but what we don't have is the kind of really widespread testing that the public health experts are saying we're going to need in order to clamp down on these problems. So unfortunately, while I think they're doing what they can, I don't think that, you know, the question is going to be whether that's enough. And, you know, but I know that is the number one thing on people's minds. And I do think that they are trying to address it appropriately. So, so I hope your family and your, you know, everyone that you're referring to is okay.
Right.
Yeah. And I just want to, Gary, I just want to thank you again and thank everybody in the Neighborhood Association for the chance to come on. And let me just, if I can, share my email. I know some of you have it, but it's ben.diamond@myfloridahouse.gov. And if anybody wants to call me about a specific issue or specific concern, I just wanted to give out my personal cell phone number. Oh, thanks. Elena put now I do see the chat. There's my email and there's my campaign site. That's great. Thank you. I'm running for re-election this November, so I always forget that part. My campaign manager, which is my wife, will be happy that I reminded everybody that. But I also wanted to give out my personal cell phone number. If anybody has any issues at all whatsoever, please just call me anytime. My cell is 727-560-0438, or you can send me an email. It goes directly to my phone, and I'll do my best to get right back to you. But that's my personal cell and my email. And again, Gary, thanks for all you're doing, and I hope everybody is well, and hope everybody can stay safe.
Okay, Ben. Yeah, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. We really appreciate it and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks again. Take care, guys.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I had just a few things to go over here as far as the neighborhood goes. First off, I think our representative is right. I'm not quite sure this thing is over with. I'm not quite sure we're done with it. And being online and having some kind of social media presence is more important now than it ever has been. And we're fortunate enough to have Colin Sullivan, or otherwise known as Sully, working on our online presence and working on our Instagram account, our Zoom account, our website, Twitter, and whatever other things are out there. So during this time, we can feel like a neighborhood. We can feel like we're having meetings, like something is still going, that we're not just sitting here waiting like probably a lot of neighborhoods are doing. And we're very happy about that. I'm going to hand it over to Colin, even though I see he's muted. Oh, no, he's not. Okay, Colin, if you could explain about our online presence.
Sure. Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everyone. So we started a couple months ago, and we're trying to build different avenues to communicate. I think everyone is very well aware of our Facebook page, the Shore Acres group. It has been a great source of information, and that will always continue to be a major source. It is used so often. We are trying to find some ways to make sure it meets the goals that everyone has. And we're trying to find that right balance. So it's a source of information. It doesn't become just a link for advertisements, but at the same time, it allows folks that are utilizing the services in our neighborhood to broadcast that. So for people to request recommendations, whether it's that broken pool pump or a electrician that doesn't have a 3-week waiting period, that is a great source for that. And so there is a few of us that are trying to just keep it within some very broad boundaries. I don't want in any way to think that we're policing the Facebook page, but at the same time, we are trying to keep it so that it does meet the goals of it is an information source first. On top of that, we're starting to move into a second one, and it is the website. Hopefully this is coming up. And it is the Shore Acres website. And we are trying to use Shore Acres FL for the majority of our handles in our websites. So if you go to shoreacresfl.org, it will bring you to the main website that we are now using. And we are just starting this. We're getting it back up and running. So keep looking. It's going to be improving. We have a lot of ideas on how to make this. And as the COVID-19 pandemic has been mentioned several times, this evening we will turn on a new page, and that is the pandemic information page. And that will give you sources of information if you're looking for something, from the dashboard that the state uses to keep track of cases, which you can search by zip code, to the CDC sites, to fraud sites. If you're wondering, is this an actual offer from the government that I should be responding to, there are several sites that are working to make sure that people can get the information to identify what frauds are out there, and there is a lot of them. On top of that, we are just opening up our Twitter site, which has been used in the past. We're trying to re-energize it. For the last few years, it was a great way to announce when the meetings are, but we want to make the Twitter page and a parallel Instagram page a source of information. And again, it's Shore Acres at Shore Acres FL is the handles for both of those. And we're asking people to start posting information, photos. Somebody posted a beautiful sunset just yesterday on it. Someone else posted a wonderful dog walk in the neighborhood. And those are the things that we're really looking for. We also want to use it, and I know Gary's going to mention this in the future, but we also want to use it for emerging items. Which streets have high water? If you're trying, instead of that Facebook page, what's the roads like? Well, why don't we show somebody what the roads are like? So as there is high water in the neighborhood, we can post those photos. As the water recedes, we can remove those photos, because we also want to show the highlights of our neighborhood. And I know a lot of real estate agents would cringe if our entire Instagram page was just flooded streets. And so would those who are looking at home value. So we're really looking at different ways to A, communicate, and B, to show how proud we are of the neighborhoods that we are. I know several people have offered to help me with one of the projects, which is the high water project that we're looking at. And if others want to volunteer and assist with these social media sites. We'd love to get some ideas from everyone and where they think we want to go. So Gary, hopefully I'll pass this back to you.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me come out of my,
And let me,
I'm all new to this too.
Yep. There we go.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Spread all over. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Colin. Soley, I know you go by Soley, but I see your name everywhere. It says Colin, so I just associate that. Thank you very much, and we're very happy that Soley's been working on this to make sure that we have an online presence, that if we are quarantined again, or whatever you want to call it, isolated, that we have a way to communicate with each other, and we have a way to keep the feeling of a society, of a community, together. I have a few announcements. Ed Montanari, he could not be here. He is the chairman now of the City Council and a great friend and our City Council representative. He couldn't be here because he has a budget meeting tonight. He sent a letter, and I will post that letter from him, and it's a very nice letter. We'll put it on the website, and we'll put it on the Facebook page. I wanted to say this about the online presence. We will have these meetings when we resume again after the summer break in fall, September 21st, if anybody's marking it down. And they'll always be broadcast so you can see them online. And what form that takes, we're not quite sure yet. The flooding issue, I want to talk about this because we've had a few ideas. Here's the situation. We can't stop flooding. That's way above our pay scale. That's city work. That's a very complicated thing. But we can work together to mitigate the effects of flooding. And one thing we're going to do at the next board meeting, I'm going to ask for funding to get some yard signs that are low wake, slow down, kids are here, don't drown them, things like that, to just give people a friendly reminder in these spots that should be obvious to everybody that flood continually, and that they can go out there and have them. And if that doesn't work, there are certain pages out there that aren't as maintained or policed as our Facebook page. So if there's video of people really breaking the rules here, there's a place for that, and we just can't have identifying parts of them. Again, we cannot stop the flooding, but we can do something about it. And I happen to live on a street that gets flooded at an intersection, and I don't think people realize how fast they're going, how dangerous it is as far as the water going into the houses. We had two houses flood this last time when we got the heavy rains, mainly because people are driving fast and leaving a wake. So we want to do something about that. My next comment is about the bridge. I did get an update from the major person in the city that's working on the bridge, and it's kind of in a state now where they're just expecting the last of the funding, last of the bidding to go on, and construction should start soon. I will post the name, I'll do that now. I'll post the name of, it has its own webpage, the bridge, if you'd like to take a look at it. And let me post this in here so everybody can see it. And my thoughts on this is why we need organization. This is why we need representation. If I've learned anything in my short stint as president of the Shore Acres Civic Association, it's that having a seat at the table matters. Having representation matters. There's neighborhoods and communities that are organized, and there's ones that are not. And the people that say oversee this bridge that is a problem for us, they have 4 or 5 different projects on their table. So we are going to be diligent about communicating with them and making sure that our perspective is heard on this. Because look, we have 3 ways on and off of our entire neighborhood. 3 ways. One of those ways is dangerous. We could survive the worst pandemic in 100 years, the worst social unrest since the 60s, and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and then get in a head-on accident on our bridge. And then the bridge isn't stable either. And you've ridden on it. You know that people drive fast. You probably do yourself. You get used to it. And it's only inches away from a head-on collision, and then the bridge is very unstable itself. So I don't know if we can move this forward, but no, this is why we organize as a neighborhood. So when we have this situation again, they know that Shore Acres, and hopefully we can get some people at Patrician Point to help us with this. They know that they're going to have to deal with an organized community. So take a look at this website for the bridge. I wish I had better news. It's looking like it's, construction going to happen later this year, and it's going to take about 16 months. It's a pretty complicated process. So if you want to get involved with this, join our organization. It's $20 a year. We can show signs, we can communicate with you, and we can show the government and whoever is working on projects like this that we're an organized neighborhood. And that's something that's very, very important to us. I wish I had better news about the bridge, but that's the situation it is in now. However, we're in contact with the people that are kind of running this thing. The next thing is the recreation center. This is going to affect all of us. We're getting a new recreation center, but they're not building it while running the old recreation center. What that means to most of us is probably nothing, because we don't have our kids there. We don't utilize it very much. However, to some of us who our kids have gone there, it matters. And we're going to have to make other arrangements for our kids to go somewhere. And one thing that's happening that Christina and myself are working on utilizing this rec center once it's out. And we're visiting other rec centers, finding out what's going on with them. So when it does open in December 21, that we have a predefined plan to help organize this. The Help Network. The Help Network is something I talked about before. If you're unfamiliar with it, I want to plan for the worst. Our obligation is to plan for the worst. It's not necessarily to hope for the best, to hope this whole pandemic goes away. But if it doesn't, we have a network to help. And right now there doesn't seem to be a big need for help, but there might be for the future. And what we kind of decided on that is to research all the resources that people that need help can get help at, and to also publish those resources and work with the local churches and work with local organizations. One of them we know of is trying to start a food bank. And instead of reinventing the wheel, searching for people that we can possibly help, that's going to be a strategy going forward. But I'm in agreement with our special guest speaker. The numbers are going up. And three bars downtown that were open are closed now because somebody there had COVID. We just heard about a daycare center being closed because somebody had COVID. We could very well shut down again. And this could very well be more of an effect. And it could be very well that we're in a situation where we just haven't felt the effect of all that's happened quite yet. But know this, that when that does happen, that we're prepared with people that are willing to help, either go shopping, mow a lawn, do chores, talk to them, get them help, that we're ready for that in case that situation happens. And that's the Help Network that we started. I don't want to take up much more of your time. The last thing I have to talk about is the History Initiative. And what we are doing with this is we are preserving our history as a community, as Shore Acres. We're in a situation now that we have to do it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to do it. This information is going to disappear, and it will disappear forever. So this is what we're doing. We're talking to the people that have been here a very long time. And if you know somebody that has been here a very long time, please let us know. We'll have the address. Somebody could post the us at shoreacresfl.org address. Just let us know. We already have like 3 or 4 people. One person has been here since the early 60s. And that's our record so far. And that information is not going to stay around forever. And we're working with the St. Petersburg Preservation Society that once we get this information, it's not a one-time shot. It's digitized. And it remains there forever for the future. And we can know what our neighborhood history is. Why are so many streets named after cities and other ones named after capitals, because we used to be called Isle of the States. Who knew? Well, nobody knows that. And that's what we're trying to do. So 2 things. If you're a history buff and this gets you excited, please contact me and work with me. Let's get this done. I don't know quite what questions to ask and quite how to go about this. And 2, if you have a neighbor that lives 3 blocks or 3 houses down and they've been here forever, I bet they would be honored to share their history and to share their memory. So look for that coming out in September, October, November, somewhere around there. If we don't do it now, it'll never get done and it'll disappear. And let me just conclude with the history by saying this: data in the future is going to be worth more than data is now. And you might be saying, well, who wants to know that? Who's really going to be interested in this? A lot of people will be interested in it. And somebody will look back and say, oh, I'm glad somebody preserved this because they had the foresight to see that this information would be valuable and it's disappearing. So if you want to help with that, please help with that. It would just be sensational. I'll close and I'll hand it back over to Elena. Our next meeting is September 21st. So I wish you a happy summer. Know that we'll be working through the summer. And I just realized the Shore Acres Recreation Center is going to be closed. So if we're fortunate enough to have that as a live meeting, we'll figure it out between now and September of where that meeting might be. And thank you, everybody, for all your support. I'm going to hand it over to Elena, and we'll have a few Q&A if we have any questions.
Thank you. Yes, I thank you so much, Gary. You've done in the, just a few months in becoming president, such a great opportunity to get our neighborhood together. So I thank you for your leadership. And I put this in the chat, but did also want to point out from a historical perspective, if you've been in the neighborhood since the 2000s, that's still 20 years ago.
Yeah.
If you've been in the neighborhood since the 90s, that's 30 years ago. That's history. So this is, and full disclosure, I only moved to the neighborhood but a few years ago. So I think if we can, could we take everybody off mute for the last 10 minutes or so, just to kind of get a more organic discussion going?
Is there an unmute all? Should we just go through there and unmute everybody? I'm not sure if anybody has
unmuted.
All right, if you have heavy breathing in the background, I think you can control whether you unmute yourself or not. Should we have like a singing and dancing? Hi, Pat.
Hi, Gary.
Wait a minute, what did I do? Lose everybody?
Nope, you're here, Carol. We hear you. Hey, Kevin, did you come off mute?
Lost the picture.
No, we got you.
Oh, I
We got it. Well, we see you. That's what's important.
Okay.
And if I unmuted anybody, you want to say muted, just mute yourself again.
Kevin dropped, but he put something in the comment section here of about Shore Acres Elementary School and moving forward with construction for SA Elementary.
Oh, Kevin, I can ask. I know Dr. Grego, and I can send him a note to ask him that. What he's talking about is Shore Acres Elementary, instead of having the portables, they're going to, this fall, that was the plan anyway, they're going to build permanent structures there where the temporary structures are now. And talking, Dr. Grego is our school superintendent for Pinellas County Schools.
Oh.
And he's very big on construction because interest rates are so low. So Kevin, I would imagine that's going to still go. It comes from kind of a different budget, but we'll see. I'll find out.
Gary, you made
Yes.
a comment about flooding before,
Yes.
and it brought to mind something different for me. Last year, maybe the middle of the year, maybe Elena remembers, we had some people out from either the city or the county, and they talked about the long-term improvement of the flooding in Shore Acres. They were going to do one of two things. One was they were going to dig a big hole somewhere underground so that excess water could flow into it. But they had another idea. Does anybody know if there's been any movement? You know, what's going on with that?
Yeah, great question. I think we should definitely, we're due for follow-up on the resiliency study that was done.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, so they did it was a 10-year study, and they were organizing and then getting ready to publish their findings, I'm sure, which is nothing much to our surprise. We live it every day, floods here. But, you know, the deeper level of that data is how do we improve? I did see another neighborhood in St. Pete Beach. The Tampa Bay Times published a $10,000 fix for their flooding issue, which seemed on face value, albeit I'm not an engineer, which seemed to be something very similar to our neighborhood that maybe could resolve. It had to do with using balloons. And I did reach out to one of our contacts at the city who is an engineer, but it's a good reminder to kind of get
could we have those folks give an update at the September 21 meeting?
That's
Yeah,
great.
I'll talk to our contact to find out who our contact is for that, and then we can get an update and post it probably before then. Talking the next few weeks, and then see. Probably the update will be they're working on it. So,
No, we need something better
No,
than
we don't want to update. We want a status report.
yeah.
okay, all right. Status report. Okay.
An action.
What actions have been taken?
Action.
Okay.
What they will be taking and what have been taken. I agree. I'm with you.
Perfect.
Okay. I think that's it.
All right. Is that a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time and enjoy the summer. And we will be providing updates, of course, via our various social media outlets, email, and other means of contact to inform the neighborhood of any updates that we receive and of the next meeting, when and where it will be.
All right, very good.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Elena.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Soli.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks everybody coming.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh.
What are we laughing about?
Oh.